Hi, it's David Worrell, your DIY CFO. Man, on June 24th, the SBA released another version of their IFR. That's the interim final regulations governing the PPP loan program. And in this 35-page document, there were a couple of surprises that I want to share with you. Sorry it took me over the weekend to actually read through this whole thing and understand it all, but here's what you need to know, okay? On the June 24th issue, the IFR tells us that the SBA will deduct the EIDL Advance loan from your forgiveness. I think we've always known that the EIDL Advance was going to be deducted from forgiveness, but now that we've seen the forgiveness applications, there's not a place for you to calculate to reduce your forgiveness by that EIDL Advance. Remember, that's the $1,000 per employee advance up to $10,000 that you got if you applied for the disaster loan. So the SBA will do that. You'll see that when it comes back to you after you've applied for forgiveness. Nothing to think about right now for that. However, really interesting, you may apply for forgiveness anytime after your proceeds have been fully used. So remember, there's an 8-week period. You may choose a 24-week period. And now, even though you're still using the 24-week period, you can actually apply after your proceeds have been exhausted. So it's going to be really interesting to see how those things calculate out. But if your bank is ready, then you can fill out the application form and submit the application even without waiting to the end of your 24-week period. Okay? If you received the PPP loan after June 5th, you must use the 24-week period. I don't know why. That's what the rule says. After June 5th, you must use the 24-week period. You may apply at any time you've exhausted them, but when you apply, no matter when you apply, you have to project the wage penalties for the entire 24-week period. So again, it's going to be really tricky if you choose to apply before the end of your 24-week period, but you can, and if you do, you have to pretend like you've gone all the way through the 24-week period to calculate the wage penalties. Remember, there's both wage penalties and FTE penalties. Now, what if you get a wage penalty because you didn't reduce the person's wages, but you did reduce their hours? In other words, the dollars per hour stays the same, but the number of hours goes down. Well, that's what I've been calling double jeopardy, and IFR makes it really clear now that the penalty will be considered only on the hours, that is the FTE penalty. Unfortunately, that's the bigger penalty. It's a percentage of forgiveness. But you will not put down a wage penalty for anyone whose hourly rate did not change, even if their hours changed. So again, it's going to be interesting to see how you actually get that on the application form, but that is the rule, and I wanted to communicate that to you. Here's a big one. We used to tell you that you had 90 days after the end of your period to submit the application form. Well, guess what? Now you have 10 months. So whether you've chosen 8 weeks or 24 weeks, you now get to wait 10 months after the end of the period before you have to submit the forgiveness form. That's really interesting. It gives you a lot of time to think about it. It gives you plenty of time to run both scenarios, 8 weeks and 24 weeks. And this is really important, and I'm going to make it my last point for today. It allows you time to think about the tax consequences. So if nothing else, remember that even though this is not supposed to be taxable, as of today, the IRS has said that the expenses will not be deductible on your taxes. Hey, that's just a really weird way of saying this is taxable money. So if you got a PPP, you, the owner of the business, if it's passed through, or the business itself, are looking at a tax liability of 20 to 30% of the value of your PPP, right? I got about $100,000 that we spent on payroll, but now I can't deduct that payroll, meaning my profits are going to be higher than they should otherwise be. So the payroll itself is not a deductible expense. My profits just went up by $100,000. I'm the owner of the business. I get hit with the tax burden of paying income tax on that $100,000 that I used to spend on other people's salaries. Now, I know that sounds terribly unfair. My fingers are crossed that Congress fixes this problem before the end of the year, or at least before tax season of next year. I got to imagine that they will, but it will require an act of Congress. And so, you know what the political situation is as well as I do. I'm not sure I want to count on that. What the 10-month period does is it gives you a chance to take a deep breath and wait and see where this tax thing comes down. And if indeed it turns out that you do have a tax liability, well, guess what? 10 months says you can keep the tax liability in the year 2020 by filing early, or you can kick the can to 2021 by filing a little bit later. So if you wait until January, that's well within your 10-month period to file for forgiveness, and then you receive forgiveness, and then that money is taxable. Your taxable event happened in 2021 and it impacts your 2021 taxes, not your 2020. So one good reason to take a deep breath, slow down, evaluate the situation from all the angles before you apply your PPP forgiveness application. And by the way, of course, you have to wait for the bank to open their doors to say, okay, we're accepting PPP forgiveness applications anyway. So I hope that's helpful today. As always, see you again next time. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel or check out our masterclass online. Let me know how I can help.